Hey guys, it's Brigitte with San Diego Seed Company, and in this video I'm going to be answering the question that you've been thinking about for a very long time. Should I get a greenhouse? Now, I really hope you watch this video because I'm going to answer some critical points and number one consideration you need to be thinking about before you spend a lot of money and potentially waste a lot of money on getting a greenhouse that you may not actually need. There's one thing that gardeners often overlook that can make buying a greenhouse a costly expense, and it ends up being something that they can't use. Now make sure you watch this video so you learn what that is, and don't make a big mistake getting a tool that you are not going to use. Now if you watch this video, you're going to learn what type of greenhouse you may or may not need, the key factors like ventilation space, how you move the air, disease prevention, and generally how you can use a greenhouse to actually be successful versus buying a greenhouse and realizing you kill everything you put in there. Which, trust me, you will if you don't know these key things. Okay guys, let's check out my greenhouse and look at all of the amazing stuff I have growing inside in the fall. Just kidding, it's a mess. Okay, this is what our greenhouse looks like in zone 9 and 10 in the fall because it's way too hot to be growing anything in here. It becomes a seed drying house where I'm drying seed for processing. I want you to see this to recognize that even as a professional seed company, I'm not using my greenhouse in the fall because it's just simply too hot. In fact, I'm starting seeds on the north side of our house underneath the shade of a jacaranda tree because the temperatures are much more favorable. Now let's talk about why that is. If you are considering buying or building a greenhouse, here are a few things that I really don't want you to make a mistake on. Number one, bigger is not always better. This greenhouse is, I think it's like 12 by 16 or something like that. It's not big. And we pump out over 1,000 starts every single year from this greenhouse. And we just have 2 tables. Okay, so you can do a lot with a very small space. And the bigger the greenhouse, the more you have to use electricity to manage the temperature. It's harder to get water throughout the greenhouse. So think smaller. Now I know what you're probably thinking. You're like, oh, I went to Costco this weekend and there's this awesome tiny little Costco greenhouse. Okay, well let me tell you the problem with that guy. Even though it's small, it doesn't have enough space to move air, okay? So number one, bigger is not always better. Think smaller, use a smaller greenhouse, get used to using it, and then use a bigger one. Number two, you have to have electricity. We've got all kinds of stuff running in this greenhouse all the time because we have to move air. And I'll talk more about that a little bit further in the video. But you cannot expect a greenhouse to be regulated if you don't have electricity, okay? Now, what are you going to use electricity for? Well, you're going to need electricity to move air. So you're going to have box fans or large greenhouse fans that are moving all the time. If you need a timer for your irrigation, anything that would need electricity in a greenhouse requires having an actual plug-in. If you think running an extension cord from your house way back to the greenhouse back there is going to work, in the long term, it's not actually going to work. So think about size, think about electricity and water. So you have to have access to water. A greenhouse gets very hot and it needs to be watered regularly. So ideally it's on irrigation. So I've got a little timer here which waters all my trays when I have them in the spring. That is key. Now number 3, this is what I was talking about in the beginning. The thing that you cannot overlook when buying or building a greenhouse is ventilation space. So the general rule of thumb is that you need 15 to 20% of the floor area to be ventilated. Now, what do I mean by that? It means if you have 500 square feet in the floor area, then 15 to 20% of that needs to be ventilation space via either windows, top vents like this, or another way you can do it is having roll-up sides, where actually the sides can roll up so that you can get airflow moving in and out. Now, why is this important? A greenhouse will get insanely hot if it's stifled and closed and there's no airflow. You'll notice that we have a fan up top, we got a fan there, and then we run several other fans to move air through the greenhouse. If you're in zone 9 and 10, this is the most critical thing that you cannot overlook because we get so hot. Our greenhouse, if we don't have the fans on and everything running during the summer or even during the spring, can get well up to like 130 degrees. And then what happens at night? It drops. That 60-degree swing in temperature is not a good life environment for plants. You'll notice they fry during the day and then the temperature drops at night. It really is not going to work. Ideally, you want to keep your greenhouse at a nice temperature of around 80 degrees all day and all night. We don't do that in this greenhouse because this is a low-tech greenhouse, but we can still pump out thousands of plants every single year. Okay, number 4 is level watering spaces. And what do I mean by that? So we built these custom on here, and it doesn't matter if you build something or if you have concrete blocks and you put a pallet on it. What is most important, especially if you're using the bottom watering method, which I really recommend, is that these tables are level. Now, what happens if they're not level? Well, I'll give a quick little example. If this table is sitting at an angle like this, all the water is going to run down here, and the plants that are here are going to be really moist. The plants up top are going to dry out. This seems like overkill, but it's a really important part of having a well-functioning, healthy, and happy greenhouse. However you build your tables, or even if you just have plastic folding tables, use a level, put it on there, and make sure the table is level so that your bottom watering methods work the best that they can and help prevent diseases, dampening off, and other issues that are common in a greenhouse. I'm sorry, I just saved this butterfly. Look, 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 look. He's stuck. Come here, little guy. Stop, you're stuck. I'll save you. I'll save you. Oh. Yeah, oh, no, out of the greenhouse. Oh. All right. Sorry, it's very important. I have to save it. Woo, come here. Oh, come here, little guy. Be free. Go on. Don't fly back in there. To kind of summarize all of this, don't go running out to buy a greenhouse because you think you need it in zone 9 and 10. We ran our business for many, many years without a greenhouse at all. Luckily, the temperatures in zone 9 and 10 are really very nice most of the time, that you can start things directly outside. You don't have to have a greenhouse to do it. If you want a greenhouse to centralize where you're doing your seed starting, you have to remember power, water, ventilation space, extremely important. And you have to remember that whatever you're using to water, to put your trays on to water, has to be level. Otherwise, you'll have inconsistent watering, you'll have diseases, you'll have very unhealthy plants. All right, we so appreciate you watching this video. And if you like the content and you're in zone 9 and 10, please subscribe to our channel so that we can help you be a better grower. Now, I don't pretend to know everything, so I would love for you to put comments on this video of what things you have learned about greenhouse management on the gardening scale that has helped you be a better gardener. And it's also a safe space. You can mention some of your little oopsies. We've all made them. It's okay. Let us learn from one another by popping a comment on this video. All right, now remember, the one thing that you need to consider when purchasing a greenhouse or building a greenhouse is ventilation space. If you don't have enough ventilation space, especially in zone 9 and 10, your greenhouse will be a fry house, and you will fry everything in it over and over and over and over again if you can't move air efficiently to cool it off. All right, so let's say you've watched this video and you're like, yeah, duh, Bree, I know all of these things and I'm getting a greenhouse. If we can support you in your greenhouse growing, remember that we sell really high quality seed starting mix, compost tea, which is really important for your seed starts, trays, and more that can help you grow a really good garden, starting in the greenhouse all the way through into the garden.